Listen closely, because what I'm about to tell you will set your heart free. You've been praying, waiting, worrying, trying to understand why certain doors have not opened, why people have walked away, and why your dreams seem to take so long. But what if I told you heaven is not confused? What if I told you that God has already arranged every step, every encounter, every delay, and even every silence perfectly for your good? You are not late. You are not forgotten. You are exactly where the divine plan needs you to be. There comes a moment in your spiritual journey when you must stop fighting the current of God's will. You must learn to float, not drown, in the flow of His purpose. The problem is, we try to carry what God has already finished. We wrestle with questions He has already answered. We lose sleep over things He has already decided. And in doing so, we miss the quiet voice that whispers, "Be still, I have already arranged it." When your spirit matures, you begin to see that rest is not idleness, it is faith in motion. You stop chasing outcomes and start trusting divine orchestration. You realize that the same God who painted the galaxies also arranged the details of your tomorrow. And when this revelation pierces your soul, anxiety loses its power. You no longer live as a victim of uncertainty. You live as a vessel of purpose. Many people think faith is loud, shouting, crying, declaring. But faith can also be silent. The faith that shakes heaven is the faith that rests. It's the stillness that says, "I know my Father is working even when I cannot see." You don't need to fight for what God has already assigned to you. You don't need to panic over what seems out of reach. If it belongs to your destiny, it will find you effortlessly. The greatest sign of spiritual maturity is emotional detachment. Not indifference, but holy confidence. When your emotions no longer dictate your faith, when your peace remains unshaken by circumstances, that's when you have truly understood the nature of divine order. You begin to move through life with calm authority because you know heaven has already signed your story. The reason you must relax is not because everything is easy, but because everything is arranged. Every disappointment is direction. Every delay is preparation. Every no is protection. Every silence is strategy. God is not trying to make you wait. He is making you ready. And when you are ready, what's yours will not just come. It will overflow. So today, let your heart breathe. Stop holding your destiny hostage with worry. Rest in the knowledge that the author of time has already written your ending. You may not understand it now, but one day you will look back and realize every unanswered prayer, every lonely night, every confusing season was part of His perfect design. You don't have to control the story. You just have to trust the one who wrote it. Relax. Heaven has already gone ahead of you. Divine order is never rushed. When we look at life through human eyes, we see delay, we see silence, we see stillness and think something is wrong. But when we begin to see through the eyes of the Spirit, we realize that what looks like delay is actually divine timing, unfolding with precision beyond our understanding. Heaven never moves in panic. God never runs late. He is not driven by human urgency, but by eternal purpose. Every second, every pause, every waiting season is a divine calculation of grace, preparing both you and your circumstances for a perfect alignment. Many believers lose peace because they expect God to move according to their own schedule. They measure divine movement with human clocks, but the timing of God does not obey the impatience of man. God moves in seasons, not seconds. He is shaping your destiny through processes that cannot be rushed. The waiting you despise is the womb of your next miracle. The silence you fear is the soil where your faith takes root. And until the essay head of your faith grows strong enough to bear the weight of your calling, God will not permit certain doors to open, not because He is cruel, but because He is careful. When you understand divine order, you stop measuring success by speed. You begin to see that maturity takes time. The oak tree that stands strong through centuries was once a fragile seed buried in darkness. It did not rush the process of growth. It trusted the rhythm of the seasons. Likewise, when God is building your life, He works layer by layer, moment by moment, unseen by others, but deeply intentional. Every season of waiting refines your character, teaches you surrender, and strengthens your inner man. The reason God's timing often feels delayed is because He is not only preparing the blessing, He is preparing you for the blessing. If He gave you what you asked for, before your spirit could carry it, the weight of it would crush you. God delays not to punish, but to protect. He withholds not to deprive, but to develop. Divine order is a love that refuses to release what will destroy you prematurely. And when you trust that love, your heart learns to rest. In divine order, nothing is wasted. Even the detours are directions. The people who left, the opportunities that slipped away, the doors that refused to open, all of them were orchestrated by a God who sees the end from the beginning. What you call too late, heaven calls right on time. What you call failure, heaven calls foundation. When you understand that every piece of your life is a thread in a much larger tapestry, you stop fighting the process and start flowing with the plan. To live in peace, you must remember this truth. Heaven's pace is not slow, it is sacred. God is never in a hurry because He is already in control. What He promised will come, but it will come when you and the promise are both ready to meet. Surrender is not weakness, it is alignment. When you surrender to God, you are not giving up. You are giving in to divine order. You are stepping out of human struggle and into supernatural flow. True surrender is not the act of quitting. It is the recognition that your strength was never meant to carry what only God can sustain. The world teaches us to fight for control, to push harder, to plan every detail. But the Spirit teaches that real power is found in letting go. When you release the need to control outcomes, you make space for divine wisdom to move freely in your life. There's a great difference between giving up and yielding. Giving up comes from despair. Yielding comes from faith. When your heart yields to God's will, you stop striving in fear and begin resting in trust. You begin to realize that every time you try to manipulate circumstances or force timing, you step out of the current of divine flow. And in that struggle, your soul becomes weary. But when you surrender, the burden lifts. Peace takes the place of pressure. Confidence replaces confusion. You stop chasing answers and start living in divine assurance. Surrender is not the language of defeat. It is the voice of wisdom. It says, Father, I trust you even when I don't understand you. It is the highest form of worship because it requires you to trust beyond reason, to believe beyond sight. It is easy to sing songs of faith when everything makes sense, but surrender begins where logic ends. The moment you lay down your agenda, heaven's agenda begins to unfold. The moment you stop fighting what God is using to shape you, transformation begins from within. True rest begins not when life becomes easy, but when your heart becomes aligned. Alignment means your will bends to His, your desires are refined by His purpose, and your emotions are anchored in His peace. It means you no longer ask, why is this happening to me? But what are you forming in me through this? That is where divine strength rises. Not in control, but in confidence that God's plan is already perfect. When you surrender, you don't low. Say your power. You rediscover where it truly comes from. Faith is silent confidence. It does not always roar. Sometimes it simply stands still and knows. True faith is not measured by how loudly you pray, how long you fast, or how passionately you declare. It is measured by the depth of your trust when heaven is quiet. There are moments when words fail, when prayers seem unanswered, and when everything around you feels uncertain. Yet in that sacred stillness, faith whispers, I know my Father is working. That is the kind of faith that moves mountains, not through noise, but through unwavering rest in divine certainty. Many people mistake activity for faith. They think that if they do more, say more, or push harder, things will change. But faith is not the product of human effort. It is the fruit of divine assurance. It grows in hearts that have learned to stop striving and start believing. When you are truly rooted in faith, you no longer panic when life becomes unpredictable. You stop asking, what if it doesn't work? And start saying, even if it doesn't look like it, God is still in control. This quiet confidence comes from knowing that the one who promised is faithful, even when the evidence seems absent. Faith is not the absence of questions. It is the presence of peace in the middle of them. It is the calm spirit that refuses to let circumstances dictate its stability. It is what allows you to smile in storms and sleep through battles. The reason faith can be silent is because it stands on a foundation that cannot be shaken. It knows that God's word is final, His will is perfect, and His timing is precise. To live by faith is to live unbothered by delay, untouched by doubt, and unbroken by disappointment. When faith matures, it becomes still. It does not rush to fix, it waits to see. It does not beg, it believes. It does not argue with what it cannot explain. It trusts the unseen hand of God. Silent faith is the loudest testimony of trust. It says, without words, that you are anchored in something higher than sight, deeper than emotion, stronger than circumstance. And in that silence, heaven moves, because faith that rests speaks louder than faith that strives. Emotional detachment is spiritual maturity. It is the quiet strength of a soul that no longer allows external storms to dictate its internal peace. It does not mean indifference, but rather a deep confidence that no matter what happens, God remains in control. When your emotions are no longer the master of your reactions, it is a sign that your spirit has grown beyond the limits of human instability. You no longer live as a slave to what people say, how circumstances change, or how outcomes unfold. You begin to move with calm assurance, knowing that divine purpose is unfolding even in the chaos. Detachment does not mean you stop feeling. It means your feelings no longer rule your faith. It means you can experience disappointment without losing hope, face rejection without losing identity, and walk through pain without losing peace. The spiritually mature person learns to observe emotions but not obey them. They understand that feelings are temporary, but truth is eternal. And the eternal truth is that God's hand governs every moment, every season, every trial, and every transition. When your heart is detached from outcomes, you become unstoppable. You no longer depend on situations to define your joy or on approval to validate your worth. You move with quiet dignity, trusting that whatever leaves your life was never meant to stay, and whatever stays was divinely assigned. Emotional detachment gives you clarity, focus, and freedom. You stop reacting and start responding with wisdom. You stop being shaken by uncertainty and start walking with stability. This is the place where peace becomes your power and trust becomes your shield, where your soul stands still while the world around you trembles. That is the strength of one who has found rest in divine alignment. Peace is the proof of trust. When your heart remains calm in the middle of uncertainty, it is evidence that your spirit has learned the language of faith. Peace is not the absence of trouble, it is the presence of divine assurance. It is what fills the space where fear used to live. The world teaches that peace comes when everything is settled. But the Spirit teaches that peace comes when your trust is settled. When you are rooted in God's promises, chaos can roar around you, yet within you there is stillness. That stillness is not weakness. It is power under perfect control. Peace is the manifestation of surrender. It is the visible fruit of invisible faith. When you stop wrestling with outcomes, peace flows like a river. It is the moment your soul exhales and says, I don't need to know how, I just need to know who. This kind of peace cannot be shaken by delay or destroyed by disappointment, because it does not depend on circumstance. It depends on the unchanging character of God. And when your confidence rests in Him, peace becomes your natural state, not your occasional experience. To carry peace in a troubled world is to declare that heaven governs your heart. It means you are no longer controlled by fear, pressure, or uncertainty. You become a reflection of divine order, calm, stable, and unmovable. That is why peace is not just a feeling, it is a spiritual position. It reveals that your faith has matured beyond emotion and entered into revelation. When you walk in peace, you are walking in proof. Proof that you trust the one who already arranged everything. So now, breathe and let your heart return to rest. The same God who began your story has already written its ending in victory. You are not behind, you are being prepared. You are not forgotten, you are being positioned. Trust the rhythm of heaven. For every moment, even this one, is part of His perfect design. Relax your spirit, release your fears, and remember, what is meant for you is already arranged by divine hands. Walk forward in peace, because the God who holds the universe is holding you too.